Back in late 2011, when the Noodler's Flex Ahab pen first came out, I shot a video like a week or two after the pen came out. It was this great comprehensive video that explained everything about it and the ink capacity and how to fill it and convert it to an eyedropper and all this stuff. And I had a audio technical problem with the video and I was never able to publish it. Well, like a month later, my daughter was born and everything just went to heck out the window and I was not able to shoot videos anywhere near like I used to. I always intended to go back and redo that video, but kind of in the back of my mind, I always thought like, oh, I already did that video, I don't need to worry about it. But I realized that I never had the audio problem fixed. And now it's been so long, it's been like a year and a half almost since I shot that video and I never published it. So here it is all this time. I've never had a video about how to actually fill a Noodler's Ahab Flex pen. So it's long overdue, but I'm going to show you how to fill it with the conventional piston and how to convert it to an eyedropper. So made you wait, but good things come to those who wait. So here it is, my video on the Ahab Flex. This is the Noodler's Flex Ahab. This is the clear demonstrator version because I'm, well, demonstrating. So I figured it was appropriate. I'm not gonna get too much into all this pen and what it's all about, but I do wanna show you how to fill it. That's what I'm gonna try and focus on. So I'm gonna try and keep this video a little short. There's two different ways that this pen can fill. Okay, so here's the body. You can see I just took it off. The cap, just threads onto the body. It's pretty straightforward, not that unfamiliar from most pens. But the inside filling mechanism is kind of different than most pens, which is why I thought this pen warranted its own video. So there's two different ways you can do it. It is technically a piston filling pen, though most piston filling that you see are screw type. This one is a push type. So basically I have my bottle of nondescript demonstration ink. The way that this thing fills, it's got a feed inside the pen, which you can see here. It's that black part. And then it has this little guy, which is a little breather tube. And that fits into a hole in the back of the feed. That's unique to the Ahab design. So that little breather tube needs to fit up into this rod, which is actually hollow. So if you try to put it in to the side, it's not going to work. It's got to go in the middle there. Okay, that breather tube is not completely essential for filling the pen, but I'll get into that in a second. So here I have the pen, the thing's all good, ready to go. And what you want to do is you want to submerge the nib completely up in the ink so that it's coming up to at least this point. Really, up onto the grip section is what you want because it's really going to fill kind of from back here. So you want to make sure that it's completely down in there. And the way that this is going to work is you're just going to take and plunge it down and then pull it back up. And that ink is actually coming up through the breather tube. So it's going to fill up in this rod part first, which is why you see that filled. And then it's going to drop down and fill around the rest of it. So you can see there's still a big air gap here. So you want to expel it again and do a second fill. And you may need to do it 2 or 3 times to really get the most into there. And it does a pretty darn good job of getting most of the air out, better than most other types of filling mechanisms, honestly. You can see there's a little air pocket there, but it's not too bad. So I've got an ink vial here that I'm going to use to kind of measure just how much ink I actually got into this thing. And it's a pretty generous volume, honestly. So give me 1 second. Okay. So I'm going to set that one aside, and I'll give you a little summary here in a minute. That's one way to fill it. Now, if you don't have the breather tube, it's not the end of the world. If you take that breather tube off, it'll still fill. It just won't fill up into this piston. So you're going to lose just a little bit. So I'll show you here. I'm filling. It's going to fill pretty good, except it's going to kind of cap off, and it's going to have some air in the top. And it's going to kind of reach a point where it just won't fill anymore. And that's about the point where I am now. Okay, so I'm going to expel this one into a vial too, and we'll see how it stacks up here in a minute. Try and get all that ink out of there. There we go. Okay, let's set that aside. Now, that's how you fill with the piston, but if you don't want to fill with the piston, if you want to really get just an absolute mammoth volume of ink into your pen, you can do an eyedropper conversion. So let's say the piston is just not enough ink for me. I really, really want to be able to write a lot. So I'm going to convert it to an eyedropper. Okay, so you take the body off, you unscrew the piston mechanism, and take it off the pen. The breather tube is on here. It's not really going to make too much of a difference one way or another whether you have this on using an eyedropper or not. But I personally just want to take it off because it'll make the next step easier. But if you think you're going to lose it, it might be better to leave it in place. That's totally up to you. You're maybe wondering to yourself, if you're curious with the eyedropper process at all, if you need an O-ring. It does come with an O-ring for the piston on the smaller part, but it does not have an O-ring for the body of the pen for converting it to an eyedropper. Now you don't have to have one. You can just put a little silicone grease on the threads. It doesn't hurt to have one though, honestly. I usually like to just kind of go a little above and beyond. I've got a platinum preppy O-ring here. If you're familiar with the preppy eyedropper conversion video that I did, it's the same O-ring there. It is a little tricky to get it on because the O-ring is just a little bit small. You know, you can source out, you know, another type of O-ring. I want to say the inside diameter of this O-ring is around 7 millimeters, if I can remember correctly. So the way to get this thing on here is to, you know, hold the O-ring firmly on one side, hold it down with your finger, and stretch it enough so that it gets close to where you want it to be in place. If it gets caught on the smaller part down here, it's really hard to step it up and get it onto the fatter threads. So you want to try to get it up there on the first shot. And then just kind of take your fingernail and push it down in place. And then you've got the O-ring there. Bam, no problem. If you don't have the O-ring, no big deal. I wouldn't sweat it too much. You can still try the conversion without it. And then grab yourself a little silicone grease. 100% pure silicone works best, but if you use plumber's silicone grease or something, if you've got, 100% is best, but if you don't have 100%, use whatever you've got. Probably won't hurt too much. Just get a tiny little bit on your finger and then take it and put it on the larger threads. The smaller ones where the piston fits on is really not going to do you anything in an eyedropper conversion. You need it on the larger ones. So just kind of use your finger, spread it around. You don't need to use a ton, just enough to really fill the space in the threads, because all you're trying to do is keep the threads sealed up so the ink isn't going to get out through the threads when you have the whole body filled with ink. Okay, doesn't hurt to have a paper towel here if you'd be able to wipe your finger off. Now we're ready to fill. Okay, the whole thing is prepped here. I've got my handy dandy eyedropper ink syringe thing. You can use an actual eyedropper if you want. But I like ink syringes better. This is a blunt tip syringe. Makes life a little easier and safer. So I'm going to fill the thing all the way because it's going to fill quite a bit. Okay, where you want to fill it to is pretty much up to about the threads. If you get any higher than that, then it's going to be easy to spill when you're trying to assemble the pen back together. So the pen, when you're filling an eyedropper, it's really important to make sure, this sounds really obvious and kind of, why do I even need to say this, but you'd be surprised. You want to make sure that your pen, whatever pen you're eyedropper converting, has no holes in it. Okay, that's really kind of a central part to the whole eyedropper conversion process. But anyway, this body is completely sealed. It's good to go. I did it right up until about, it gets to the thread portion. And then basically I just take this and thread it on. You don't need to go super tight with it, especially if you have an O-ring in place. You just want it to be tight enough so that you feel the O-ring start to catch on there. And dang, that's pretty good. So I got a little tiny bit of air bubble in there, but this whole pen is filled with ink. And that is going to be a lot of ink, okay? Now I'm going to take this and pour it into a vial as well so that we can match it up to all of the other filling mechanisms that we did. I don't even need to tell you that that's a lot more. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is take the Cartridge Converter. This is a standard international converter, and I'm going to fill it just to show you, maybe give you some perspective about how much you can expect it will fill. Now there will be a little bit of an air pocket in here, so I will try to expel all of the air out of it and really get you a maximum filling on this converter, just so I can give you a fair perspective. Okay, so I've got a tiny bit of air in there, but that's about as good as it's going to get. So I will expel as much as I can out of there. Okay, and now I'm going to show you how all these different mechanisms stack up. So this is the standard international converter. I got a pretty decent filling out of it. It's about 0.7 milliliters, somewhere around there. It's not too bad. You know, I can't really ask anything more out of a converter. It's about the best you're going to get. But if you want to go with the Ahab, this is without the breather tube. You saw where it fills a little bit less. That is going to get you about 1.7 milliliters. So it's going to be about twice that of your typical cartridge converter pen. If you go with the breather tube, you're able to get a little bit more, closer to about 1.9 or so. A little bit better, still not too shabby. But if you really want to get a mammoth amount of ink, well, there's your eyedropper. That's going to get you just over 6 milliliters, give or take some, depending on, you know, just how high you top the thing off. This is pretty high though, over 6 milliliters. So this is pretty much, I think, the highest ink capacity of any pen that I'm aware of currently on the market, especially in the $20 range. So as you can see, the eyedropper definitely gets you the most amount of ink, but really no way you fill the Ahab is really too shabby. So it's better late than never, as they always say. Here's my video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions about the Ahab or anything else, just let me know in the comments. Thanks so much for spending time with me today, and right on.